All right, welcome everybody to class number 5. We've got Travis here waiting to go on in a few minutes, but of course I want to do the usual housekeeping. Again, this is your host, Anthony Rusumano from CUSD. I'm the College and Career Counseling Coordinator, and we're class number 5, and we'll be hitting class 6 Wednesday at 6, so don't forget, mark your calendars for the last class meeting that we have. Again, want to thank everybody who's been attending pretty regularly. For those that are watching the videos, you can still keep on pace with us. Tonight is going to be the lesson on math, our second lesson on math. So Travis is going to take you in a little different direction. So hopefully you'll be there for that. Couple things for tonight's session. Again, as we usually do, if you have any questions, the best place is to put it in the Q&A. You'll find that just ask a question right then and there. We'll either answer it live, where I'll pose it to Travis. I'll either answer it privately, directly back to you. Also, if Travis asks you some questions or anything, you're happy to put some responses in the chat area for him if he's looking to get a response, or which answer, what do you think? Please do that in the chat. You can also ask questions in the chat, but we prefer the Q&A. In terms of other housekeeping, I'm going to share my screen again with you. You guys get used to that. The student folder, remember, has all your needs from the class recording. So I'm in the student folder right now, so you have that access. So go to the link that's been sent to you in your email. You'll see the class recordings right here. So if you click in there, we have class 1 through 4. So you can rewatch anything that you went through in the first 4 sessions. I'll upload class 5 for tomorrow. So you'll be able to do that. Or if you've missed or been late to a session, you can come back in there. We have the class slides. These are the PowerPoints or the things and the materials that we use during the session that we have. We even have Travis's class 5 tonight already uploaded here. Then we have practice problems, anything that we've had in a class that we might have given you to say, hey, do some of these problems. Travis will give us from tonight some problems that I'll upload to those as well. And then just some general flyers and information that you have access to, links to practice tests, the syllabus. Remember our event calendar. I've been telling you all the different events that we have going on in CUSD. You can check them out here. Hopefully you attend some of those as well, from college search to financial aid. And then we actually have a new flyer in here. It's from our friends at Scorbion. They have actually given everybody who's attending the boot camp free premium access to their test prep apps. So they have 2 apps, SAT Up and ACT Up. And actually you can download that on your phone, enter CAPO under the invite code section of your in-app profile, and you're able to get their premium access for CAPO students. So that's just a great way to be doing SAT and ACT prep on the run. So it's just for a mobile option for you if you want to try and check it out. So there's a lot of good practice and practice tests, things you can get daily from them. So if you want, check it out. It's going to be at no cost to you. Okay. They're also giving you a free consultation if you want to take advantage of it. Again, this is a private company, but they were really willing to give us an attempt to try their apps. So you might as well try them if you're still looking to do some prep. So that's on some of the folders on that. I'm going to stop my share here. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, and because I've been getting some questions on this along the way, again, I know some of you are all different levels when we're talking about where you are in this test prep process. Some of you are doing some prep classes already. Some of you have done nothing. You just need to understand that it's, at this moment, a one-size-fits-all. So we're really starting from scratch in the basics for a lot of students. For some of you, you're much more advanced than that. So understand that and know this is what this is. So if you need more or you need to go to a higher level, that's on you guys. For those that this is the first time they're seeing some of this, maybe it's a great point for you to start at. You might need some more additional testing and drills. So really, you have to take that upon yourself and do that. This is really a good starting point for you to get your feet wet with some test prep and some techniques and strategies that we're showing you that you might not be familiar with, because it's a little different than some of your academic tests. So that's my caveat for tonight. And so make sure that you take advantage of what we have to offer, but then if you need more, if you need 200-point improvement, you might need some more additional time, more than the 4 weeks that we've spent together, okay? So again, if you need more, go and get it. Other than that, again, thanks for coming. I'm gonna turn it over to Travis, and I'll be managing the Q&A along the way. So Travis, again, I wanna welcome Travis. I've known Travis for probably over 15 years tutoring with him. He's one of the best tutors that I know. So we brought him in, and we really thank him for his time. So Travis, it's all yours, buddy.
Okay, thanks, Anthony. Just want to make sure, can everybody hear me okay? I'm assuming that we can, because Anthony would be telling me if we couldn't. So hi, good evening. I know that you guys got to work with Alan the last couple of meetings, I think talking some grammar and reading. And today I'm going to switch back and talk more about some math techniques that we want to know for the ACT and the SAT. I've been teaching this, as Anthony says, for about 15 years. Currently, I'm a PhD student at UC San Diego. That doesn't really mean very much other than to say that I probably spend too long reading books. And I also do quite a bit of math. So I'm happy to show you guys what I know. And I look forward to some of your questions. So I'm going to do a share screen, and we're going to go through some of the material that I've called up. There will be some more advanced questions. So if there are people that are a little bit more concerned about, I've already done some prep and maybe this isn't worth my time, some of these questions might actually be of benefit to you, even if you have done some advanced prep. And they should also be very accessible to people who are just starting out. So I've created that with kind of a wide range of people in mind. A lot of us who are working on these tests don't necessarily realize that the fundamentals or the very basic techniques are actually what even the most advanced students need to work on. So I'm going to be talking a lot about the most fundamental and yet ironically advanced techniques that we need to know for the SAT and ACT. So I'm going to share the screen. Hopefully everybody can see this. If you cannot, you can also download the exact same set of slides. So I think we're good.
I can see it.
Okay, so we're good to go. I'm just going to leave it up like this. Hopefully everybody can follow my mouse as I talk. So we're in Futurology Class 5. This is my email down here. If you guys would like to connect with me, please feel free. I will also bring the email up at the end of our session. I look forward to your questions, totally gratis. I'm happy to help point people in right directions and just let them know about kind of the wealth of information that I've collected working as a tutor in Orange County for the last 15 years. Okay, we've already covered a few different things. Two of the most important things that relate to the math, and this is, I think, from class 1, are the pacing and the POOD. Hopefully you guys remember what that stands for. I'll just remind you, POOD stands for Personal Order of Difficulty. We think it's kind of a funny acronym. Basically, it means that you need to take a look at each question and make sure that you feel comfortable with it. Some questions might just not be worth your doing, even if it is only question number 10 out of 20 or only question number 30 out of 60 on the SAT or ACT respectively. You also want to be aware of pacing. So the ACT tends to be a little bit faster than the SAT. The ACT reading and the science, for example, are an average of 52 seconds, so a little bit less than a minute. A really useful device that you can have when you're taking a test is a watch. You can get a simple sports watch, like the kind of watch that you would use for running, not like the new fancy ones that have GPSs on them, but like the old school ones that people used to wear 10 years ago. And you can use that just to keep timing of yourself as you go through the test, or you can use a regular watch. I don't recommend looking at the clock when you take the test because it can be awkward looking up from your test to the clock, and some classrooms don't even have clocks. But you can have an analog watch, and it is a really useful device. What's really important is to make sure that you don't run out of time and that you let go of questions if you get stuck. I'll come back to that and talk about it more later on. But it is really important to have a sense of timing, more so on the ACT than the SAT. So if you really feel uncomfortable with timing, and you're the kind of person who doesn't like to show up, for example, to catch a bus on time, or you find yourself being 2 or 3 minutes late to meetings a lot of the time, you might find yourself liking the SAT a little more than the ACT, simply because the SAT is not quite so time sensitive. Keep that in mind, and you can try different tests and see which is better for you. So we've already talked about personal order of difficulty. One thing that you need to know is, hopefully after you've done a practice test, you can check and see how many points you need in order to get your target score. So for example, on a ACT math section, you might be getting about 30 correct, and you might realize that you need to get only 37 or 40 correct out of 60 to get the score that you want. Or maybe you need something more like 50 correct out of 60, and you're starting at 35 correct. If you're the second person and you have 15 points to make up, you're going to have quite a bit of work that you need to do, and you're not going to be able to skip as many questions. If you're the first person and you only need a few points and you don't need to attack all of the questions on the test, then you should keep that in mind, because if a question makes you feel uncomfortable and you've already done the setup and you still don't know where to go, then you don't need to worry about it. Just be good at letting the question go after it's been a minute. Don't spend 5 minutes on a question. 90% of students that spend more than 2 minutes on a question are going to miss the question anyways. So it's not worth your time to spend 2 minutes on a question that you're probably going to miss. What you can do is take your best shot and move on, or save the question for later and come back around to it. The fourth bullet point I have here on this slide is do the easy test first. What that means is whenever you're taking a standardized test, there are easier questions that are sprinkled throughout the test. And this is for the SAT and the ACT. The SAT tends to be a little bit more in order. It goes easy to difficult more linearly. The ACT tends to have easy questions sprinkled in even at the end of the test. So what you need to do every time you do a question is put the question down on the page, analyze it for 10 or 15 seconds, and figure out if this is the question that you feel comfortable progressing with. If you've set it up and you've double checked it and you still don't know what to do, then maybe you should let the question go. And if you do practice tests and you realize that you're still pretty far from your target, that means you're going to need to do more practice tests, maybe some other prep. A lot of people out there in the world do prep, and this is how they get better. This is not a test of your natural intelligence. A lot of people realize once they get into the world test prep that actually these tests are just a test of your motivation and the amount of consistent practice that you can put in getting used to these kinds of trick questions. Another thing that I'm going to talk about a lot today is that setup is everything. I'm just going to highlight that. For the math questions, everything is about setup. Another thing that you guys need to be aware of, wait, I already talked about it, is letting it go, but I say it in a different way. So another way that I'll talk about letting go of a question is S4L. S4L means save for later. So you'll hear me either say let it go, or you'll hear me say save for later. Those are two different ways that we can consider letting go of questions. Let's see, I'm going to flip back to me. Can everybody see me? So again, I really want to reiterate the importance of making sure that you're comfortable with the question. That's going to be the most important thing to talk about from the beginning. A lot of students want to put themselves into what I call mud pits, where maybe question number 23 looks like something easy, but the further that you go into question 23, the more time slips away from you, and all of a sudden you spent 3 minutes on a question and you aren't going to get it right, and then you're not going to finish your section. And so it's really, really important to have time awareness and to know when to S4L. So I just wanted to reiterate that. All right, back to the PDF. Another thing that we've covered is POE. Hopefully you guys all know that POE stands for process of elimination. So that's this right here. A lot of people, when they solve a question, they look for the right answer and they try to do it in their minds. I like to call that being mental. We don't want to be mental on the question. What we want to do is put everything on the paper. Instead of being a Zen master who's just sitting there going, I think I can figure it all out in my mind. We want to be a person who can work everything out on the page and let the page teach them what the right answer is. Part of teaching ourselves the right answer means looking for the 3 wrong answers. So when we look at a question, we're often trying to cross off at least one, and often if you can cross off one, then maybe another or even a third wrong answer choice to where you can get to a 50-50 shot. A 50-50 shot means that you have 2 answer choices left over, and you're going to select between those 2. Once people get down to a 50-50 shot, they become a lot more accurate, something like 80 or 90% accurate, as opposed to more like a 1 in 4 or 1 in 3 before they started using POE. The reason that people are very good at deciding between 2 different things is because humans have bilateral symmetry. So we have 2 eyes, we have 2 ears, we have 2 hands. We seem to be designed to consider things from 2 different sides. It's just how we are. So if you can get things down to 2, you're going to be in your natural best orientation to solve that question. So I want to reiterate, on every question, try to cross off at least once. This is not going to be possible on every math question, but it should be for a lot of math questions. Let's take a look at the next slide. Here we have a POE question. This is a number 53 on an ACT. I'm sorry for the slightly photocopied look of it. It's from a real ACT test. I honestly can't remember which one. Please take a moment to read it. And what I want you to think about is not what is the right answer, but look at the answers and tell me which ones could you cross off. Again, this is a real ACT question. This is a number 53 out of 60, so it's supposed to be fairly difficult. I'm going to give you guys about 10 seconds, maybe 20. Okay, so if you were just looking at the question, you would notice that they told us how long 10 is. Line segment AB has a distance of 10. Well, that means that line segment CD, just by using some basic estimation, is probably not going to be 3.7 or 4.1. It's probably quite a bit longer than that. But it's probably not going to be 24.1 either. That's going to be much too long. So just by using some common POE sense, again, eliminating the answers that we know are wrong, we can get down to 2. I'm not entirely sure what the right answer is. To be honest, it doesn't matter. If you see the question on a practice test, you're welcome to go for it. What matters is that we can get it down to 2, and we can take our best shot. And it only took us about 20 seconds. That is a major skill. You can use this kind of skill 10 times per test in the math. That's no joke. 10 times per test, you can cross off 2 or 3 answers and get down to 2 if you are staying aware of the question and trying to cross off actively. If you are the kind of person that likes to try to solve the question and just find the one answer, you're not going to notice that you could be doing this. You're going to waste a whole bunch of time that you could have spent just working on other questions or relaxing and double checking because you weren't aware that you could have crossed off 2 or 3 answers and made an easier choice. Also, on really difficult questions that you don't know how to solve, i.e. this number 53 that we're looking at, you can get down to 2 answer choices with a minimum of work, and this happens very frequently. All right, let's get to some fundamentals. So I'm supposed to talk about fundamentals today in math. Well, fundamentals, first of all, have to do with number properties. So one thing I want to ask you guys is, what is the first prime on the SAT or ACT? Apparently, different math teachers teach different first primes. I think my math teacher in high school said the first prime was 1. Somewhere in between my high school and my college, the 1 became 2. Apparently on this test, the first prime is actually 2. I'll come around to that in just a second, but while we're at it, here's another question. Is the number 0 even, or is it odd? Most of us know the answer to that one, although sometimes we sit there and psych ourselves out. We know that 0 is between -2 and 2. In fact, it's right in the middle. And we know that -2 and 2 are both even. Oh, so then it's probably likely that 0 is even. Well, here's the real doozy. Is 0 positive, negative, both, or neither? The answer is the number 0 is even, and it's neither positive nor negative. 0 is neutral as far as positivity or negativity. It's neutral like Switzerland. That's maybe a good way to remember it. So if you just write down on your notes that 0 equals Switzerland, you'll have that forever. And if you ever get one of those questions, you should be okay. Again, the first prime on the SAT or ACT is 2. It is not 1, nor is it 0. A prime must be divisible by itself and by the number 1, and itself and the number 1 must be 2 different things. Therefore, the first prime is 2. Let's try a question that uses these fundamentals. So I'm going to give you guys a little while to think about this, but I'm going to read it so that we're all there. Again, if you're having issues following my screen, you're welcome to download the same question set. We're on slide number 9. It's available on the fundamentals link that Anthony showed you in the beginning of class. Set C includes all non-negative even integers less than or equal to 10, while set D includes all non-positive integers greater than -3. How many integers are in the combined set C and D? Now, if you haven't written anything down and you're sitting there trying to solve this in your head, I'm afraid you're going the wrong way. You're trying to be a Zen master or you're trying to be mental. Either way, that's not good. Now, I'm not saying that mental activity is a bad thing. It's very important to have an active mind. But what you do not want to do on this test is do any more than one thing in your head at a time. If you do more than one thing in your head at a time, you're going to find yourself in a fairly unhappy situation fairly quickly because these questions are designed to trick you. This question in particular is designed to trick you. I'd actually like to show you guys how to solve it. Let me give you another 10 seconds to work on it, and then I'll switch over to the answer, and then I'll show the solution. All right, so the correct answer is supposed to be 9. Let's take a moment and find out why. I'm hoping that some of us are scratching our heads going, well, wait, how does that work? I've taken off the slide, but let's repeat. Set C if we have this written down correctly, was supposed to be the even integers that were less than or equal to 10. And they were the non-negative. So they were the non-negative even integers that were less than or equal to 10. I'm hoping everybody can see what I'm writing. And set D was supposed to be the non-positive integers that are greater than -3. This would have been a good way to start off the question. If you can write it down, you're going to be a lot happier. In fact, it would be really helpful to even write down what the members of the sets are. So what are some non-negative even integers that are less than or equal to 10? Well, definitely 10 is less than or equal to 10. And I think we could just work our way back. I think 8 and 6 and 4 and 2. But what about 0? Well, remember, 0 is neutral. So technically 0 is both even and it's non-negative. So 0 counts in set D. I'm sorry, in set C. And that's actually the trick to the question. If you don't write it down, you're not going to notice that. That's kind of a surprise. That's the kind of thing that you're going to need to write down in order to catch. Set D is all the non-positive integers that are greater than -3. Well, one integer that's greater than -3 is -2, and also -1. And come to think of it, 0 doesn't count. Oh no, 0 does count because 0 is non-positive. So 0 counts as well. So it should be those three. So that means there are 1, 2, 3 elements of set D, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 elements of set D. So C plus D is going to be 9 altogether. What I really want to iterate is how important it is to write your thoughts down on the math. I cannot stress this enough. Every time you do a math question on the SAT or ACT, you need to have your pen or your pencil on the paper. You just, that's how you have to do it. A way that I teach my students to consider this is that these things, which we call pens or pencils, have been with us for a long, long time. I think a couple thousand years. And humans made this invention, and even though we have computers and all this amazing stuff, we still find ourselves using styluses that are the exact same thing as pens or pencils. The reason for that is because a pen or a pencil focuses your attention into a point. And so when you make a mark on a page with that point, what you're doing is creating a memory that is actually hard written into your muscle memory. I'm pretty sure that's what a pen or pencil does. So whenever you're writing something down, you're actually databasing it into your mind, and it'll stay there for at least the next 2 or 3 minutes, which is long enough for you to solve the question. If you just read the question, you're making a visual imprint of what you've read, but that's not going to last nearly as long as something that you write down. That's why it is so very important to write down your thoughts and save them on the page. There's nothing wrong with writing too much. It's actually very important, and that's how I teach this, even for people who are trying to get a 36, in fact, especially for them on an ACT, or if they're trying to get an 800 on the math. That's just how it goes. If you're trying to get a 500 or an 800, you got to write it down. That's just...
Travis, I have a question coming in.
Oh, okay.
So someone asks us, so 0 counts twice, even though the 2 sets share it. So I guess looking back at the problem, why you counting? Oh, sorry.
Actually, that person is correct, and I have to give a point to that person. The credited response would be 8. So thank you for that, person. My apologies. The correct response, once we combine them, would be 8. I'm not even going to try to defend myself, but what I should have done was put C union D. So if we want to do the advanced point, if I'd said C union D and put the sets together, then yes, it would have only been 8 elements. I was just counting the raw number. Okay, I'm going to keep moving along. Thank you. Good question. So let me share the screen again. All right. And if I make any other mistakes, please let me know. So I did just kind of create these on the fly, but I will update that. C is the correct response. Brilliant, and thank you. Okay, talking about writing. So again, I've already stressed this via the camera, but I just want to say that whenever you look at a question on the math, and really on the test, you want to be writing down as much as you can and using that database that is the page. This is a pencil and paper test. The paper is a database. It's a set of diagrams. It's a way of thinking. The way that I teach my students to think about math questions is to use the flood step. So I'm going to explain what these different pieces mean, but this is the acronym that I share with my students to get them to figure out how to attempt math questions. The F stands for writing down the formula. People don't like to write down formulas. They think it's a waste of time. They think that they've read the formula, and so they don't need to write it down. They can just plug in mentally. Half the time when they do that, they miss it. I could be fair and say maybe 40% of the time they miss it, but a lot of the time they miss it. You always need to label. That means your points. That means the length of line segments. Whenever you get a chance to write down what something equals and what it is, your variables, for example, you should label what it represents. Similarly, you should always write down what your units are. Are these seconds or minutes? Are these centimeters or meters? Are these units squared or are they cubed? And then whenever possible, you want to draw the diagram. The diagram is extremely important because diagrammatic thinking is what the test is arguably based on, especially in the geometry. So FLUD, the flood, this is the way that you want to set up a question. The way that you want to attack a question is the step. So it's like the flood step. The flood step altogether is a math technique. The step represents the ways that you can go about either simplifying, retargeting, or plugging in on the question. STEP does not cover every single question type. There are a lot of questions that you're simply going to solve or that you're going to recognize there's some pattern, but STEP tells us different things that we can consider when we get stuck. So a lot of the time somebody will write down an equation, and if they simply simplify it a little bit or try to get it to look like the target, they'll find the solution merely by simplifying. A lot of the time we'll work through a question and we'll forget what the original question was asking, and so we have to retarget and remind ourselves that, oh yeah, I was looking for A, even though I ended up solving for 3A squared, I need to figure out what the original A value is. Also, a lot of the time we can plug in. And we've already covered plugging in through Anthony's class, so hopefully you guys are already plug-in masters, but we're going to come back around to plugging in anyhow today, just a little bit. So let's get a demo on the flood step. We actually already did that for this question. That was what I just drew for you guys. So if I were to flip back.
Hey, Travis, I think you're right with the 9 on that question, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it doesn't say distinct integers. It just says how many integers. So
right, but once you combine sets through a union, the 0 would collapse on itself. So that's actually technically correct, I think. I just didn't call it a union.
Oh, okay. That's I didn't know what the okay, sure.
So yeah, I left it ambiguous. So
yeah,
again,
they wouldn't write the question like that. They would specifically.
Right. If it were written like this,
yeah,
then it would be just the set of 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, 0, -1, and -2. So then it would have 8 elements. So that person is technically correct. Although what I did write, I mean, to be fair to myself, I wrote C plus D.
Right.
So just so you guys are there.
Yeah. They'll never write C plus D. They won't.
No,
do it
that was bad writing on my part. So that's why I'm giving the point to that person. I have no problem being wrong. So that's totally fine.
But now we're clear, everybody. So
yeah, it was a great question. So thank you. The point that I wanted to make is that when you set up the question with the flood step, it should look something like this. And I really want to reiterate that. We're going to see that again on the next question. So flipping back. This is amazing technology. So what are some other fundamentals that we need to know? Well, one thing, and actually Anthony already brought it up, we need to know what the word distinct means. Distinct is a mathematical term for different. I'm going to ask a question that actually has to do with what distinct means. But in the previous question, if we said how many distinct elements does C union D have, C union D would have only 1 0, even though there were 2 zeros to begin with, 1 in C and 1 in D. The combined union set would only have 1 distinct 0. The other thing that I want to mention is that we need to know the difference between a factor and a multiple. A factor is what divides into a number. A multiple is what the number multiplies out to. So for example, the factors of 15 are 3 and 5, and also 15 and also 1. The multiples of 15 would be 15, 30, 45, 60, etc. So the multiples get bigger from the number. The factors are what divide into the number. So here's a practice problem. I guess we're going to use the union for set E and F, and hopefully that doesn't affect the answer. So again, thanks to that person, and I guess that'll be the theme for our tutorial. This sign right here with the plus, you can consider to be a U, so like a smiley face without the eyes. But I don't think it'll change the answer to this one. And again, what I want to encourage you guys to do is to annotate. So set E contains all the distinct prime factors of 12, while set F contains all the positive multiples of 2 that are less than or equal to 12. How many integers are in the combined set E union F? And I stand corrected. There actually will be another combination here. So I'm going to have to slightly edit my answer. So I've written that the correct answer is 8. I actually think it's going to be 7. But let's solve it together and we'll see what it is. So let me flip us back over here. And we have set E. E contains all the prime factors of 12. So we're looking for the prime factors. Again, the factors are what go into 12. If you want to find the prime factors, the way that you can find them is to make a tree. This should go back to like 5th or 6th grade. So you take the number 12 and you break it up and you say, what could 12 divide by? And we say, well, how about 4 and 3? That seems pretty good. Well, 3 is a prime, so we can't go any further there. But the 4 we could break up further and we could get 2s. So actually what multiplies to 12 is 2 times 2 times 3, or the ends of the tree branches. This should seem pretty familiar to you guys. So 12 is 2 times 2 times 3, but we want the distinct prime factors of set E. The distinct prime factors of set E are just the 1, 2 and the 1, 3, because the second 2 is not distinct. So the distinct prime factors that make up set E are going to be the 2 and the 3. The factors that make up F, the multiples that make up F are going to be all the positive multiples of 2 that are less than or equal to 12. So it's going to be all of the x2s that are less than or equal to 12. So F is going to be, and this is where there's an overlap, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and because it's less than or equal to, we're going to include the 12. So F is going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 elements, and E is going to have 2 elements. So that means there should be a total of 8. However, if this were to be E union F, just like in the last one, then the 2 would collapse in on itself because we had a 2 in both sets, right? We have a 2 here and a 2 here. It's going to collapse and it's actually going to make 7 elements. And let me just write them out so we have them. 2, 3, 4, and then 6, 8, 10, and 12. Distinct elements. So even though we made a mistake, I think this ended up being a learning experience for all of us. And that's great. That's actually how learning tends to happen. The correct answer is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 elements. So there are 7 distinct elements. It should be answer B, even though we have circled answer C. So hopefully everybody is okay with that.
Guys, as we do these problems, as Travis is doing them, as Alan did them, as I were doing problems, and we're teaching you strategies and methods and techniques. It might, and this has come up, oh, this is going to take me too long. Right now, the way we're setting it up, it seems like it might take a long time. It really doesn't. Once you get in the habit and you're practicing it, and it just happens like second nature that you write these things out. So once you do the flood step and once you do plugging in and all those things that we're teaching you, it doesn't take that long. You just have to practice it. That's why it seems like it takes long, is because you don't know it or you're not practicing it. So once you start to practice it, it becomes much quicker. And that's where you got to get. You got to get quicker. And that's because it's a time test. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, actually, let me add to that for a second. That's actually a great question. And I'm really glad that that was asked, because a lot of people feel that way and then they never actually express it. And then they don't trust the technique. So I've tutored for thousands of hours. I didn't ever expect to be doing this for a living, but it's just where I've ended up. And I have had a number of students that smile and they do the technique that I've taught them, and then for some reason on the real test, they don't trust the technique because they feel like it's going to waste their time or they get uncertain. And then they don't do as well because they fall back on their old habits. You need to have a technique memorized in the exact same way that, let's talk soccer, in the same way that a person has a certain crossover move in soccer memorized, or a certain serve in tennis, or, I mean, we can take any sport, a certain stroke in swimming, or a way that you use a golf club, or if you don't like sports, a certain level of a video game that you've memorized. It has to be something that you have down to the level of knowing it super, super solid, like almost in your sleep. Plugging in should be something that you just know how to do. Why? Because you've done hundreds of problems and you just know how to do it. That's where the improvement is going to come from. That's where the improvement comes from anytime we try to learn something. It takes repetition, and it takes reflection, and it takes collaboration with other people. And after you do that for a while, it becomes second nature. That's how you're going to do better on a test. It's not something that happens overnight. People do tend to go up on these tests a little bit when they do 1 or 2 practice tests because they become comfortable with the general test. A little bit of their anxiety is reduced. But when you want more improvement beyond that, it does take work. It's like if you wanted to get better at running a 3-mile race. I used to be a runner, so I'll talk about that. You might get somewhat good in the first couple of weeks just because you get in kind of normal shape, but then it takes some serious work if you want to get better beyond that. Like that's the part that just takes some active thinking, reflecting, and doing. I'll get off that horse, but I just want to say some people work on these tests for a number of months to get the scores that they want. And that's normal. It's not the kind of thing where somebody that you know probably walks around saying, oh, I got this score, I'm so great. Well, that somebody probably had parents that worked really hard with them. Some of them might have had tutors, or they might have done classes, or they might have collaborated with a lot of their friends. What I'm trying to say is that there aren't natural geniuses. I mean, it's great that those people are doing well on their tests and that they're smart and that they work hard. But it doesn't mean that they were just born that way. They've worked at it. And that's true for 99 out of 100 people, or maybe 999 out of 1,000 people. So please keep that in mind. All right, back to this. So I'm going to switch over from the numbers. Again, we talked about the primes, and we talked about 0, and we talked about factors and multiples. Those are some basics that you need to know. We also talked about the word distinct. When you are doing geometry, these are the basics that you need to know in general. These are actually pretty similar to what you're going to see on an SAT. So the SAT actually gives you pretty much the same formulas as these. And they're at the beginning of your test section, so you can look at them as a reference. So they'll give you the area and the circumference of a circle. They'll give you some right triangles. They'll give you the Pythagorean theorem. They'll even give you, for the SAT, the volume of a sphere and the volume of a cone. The ACT does not give you any of these formulas. Let me repeat that. The ACT does not give you these formulas. So if you want to know these formulas on the ACT, you need to memorize them and practice them. The best way to do that is to make flashcards. So again, let me just reiterate. The ACT does not give you the formulas. The SAT does. Even so, you want to know the formulas for either test so well that they're basically memorized. Well, how do we go about memorizing math formulas from 2 or 3 years ago or from last year? The way that we do that is we make acronyms. So this is just kind of a tongue-in-cheek example, but it's a good example. I found this on Google. If you want to remember the circle area, remember that apple pies are super. So what that stands for is A, P, R, although it's with an A, but it's R, and then S. So area equals pi r squared. All pies, or apple pies, are super. And cherry pie is delicious. So circles equals 2 pi diameter. I'm sorry, that's totally wrong. It's pi diameter. I'll update that for the released version. So C equals pi d. And yeah, clearly I went through these a little too quickly last night. It's really important to make flashcards, and you need to memorize whatever it is that you don't know and practice it. The best way to do that is to go through some of the sets that they have up on Khan Academy or other free websites, or you can just grab a book from Amazon for $10 or $15 and go through some of the practice questions there. If you find yourself missing a certain type of question, then you should redo a problem set of those questions. For example, circles. Clearly, I need to work on my circumference of circles because I think that the circumference is not nearly pi diameter, though it is pi diameter. Here's a typical circle problem. And I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to set it up. What I really want to iterate is that the flood step is here to be our first step. And what I mean by that is we need to mark the diagram and we need to label it. So in the figure below, AC is a diameter of a circle and is 4 units long. So again, AC is a diameter and AC is 4 units long. Oops, don't want to give the answer. What is the area in square units of the circle? So what I'd like you to do is draw a circle, draw AC, label it as 4, and then figure out where you can go from there. A lot of people, when they do this problem, try to do it in their heads. And a lot of people will get it right. But a lot of us will mess up the difference between the circumference and the area mentally. In fact, a student of mine just did that this morning, a very high-scoring student. It's very easy to flip area and circumference formulas because they're so similar. So if we work through, the diameter of the circle is 4, and that means the radius is 2. And so we should start by writing the formula, area equals pi r squared, because apple pie are super. And then we can solve and figure out that the area of this is 4 pi. This is a more basic circle question. They do get a lot more challenging. But what I really want to stress for you guys is how important it is to mark in the figure if they give you one, or if they don't give you a figure, to draw your own. You need to think on the page. That's just how these questions are. If you try to do it in your mind, it's going to catch up with you. Let's try another one. This one's a little bit more fun. So it says, what is the area of the figure shown? You're going to want to mark it once again. The question is, how could you solve the area of this? This kind of a figure, if you look at it how it is a trapezoid. Maybe you could solve it as a trapezoid, except, and this is if you even knew the area of a trapezoid, which is a random formula that a lot of us don't, you would need to have both base lengths. You would need the length of the longer base and of this shorter base that has a length of 5. Well, they didn't give us this longer base, so we couldn't even use the trapezoid formula to solve this area. So there must be another way. Well, there is. Sometimes you can make a mark inside of a figure, and then you can divide the figure into multiple figures. This is the kind of thing that you'll notice with practice. It's really a trick if you're not a geometry whiz, but you can get really good at this kind of trick if you practice it and if you look at the solutions in any manual, Kaplan, Princeton Review, McGraw-Hill, Barron's, whoever. Just grab a manual and everybody teaches the same kind of stuff and you can figure it out if this is surprising. From here you could figure out, what the areas are. So, oh, actually I'm not going to give the area just yet because we need to know the height of this triangle. Now I'm hoping that you guys are looking at this triangle and saying, aha, this is a right triangle. And I have all my right triangles memorized because, well, actually probably a lot of us don't. We should have 3 different right triangles memorized. The 3 different right triangles that we need to have memorized are these 3 that I'm putting up right here. These are the Pythagorean triples that you were taught whenever you did geometry, and they show up on every SAT and ACT, and they're just common knowledge that you want to have memorized in the same way that you would have the circle area or the area of a triangle formula memorized. So what you need to know is that if you've got a 3 and a 5, then you'll also have a 4. 3, 4, 5. You'll also have 5, 12, and 13 will be the hypotenuse. And then you can also double the 3, 4, 5 and get a 6, 8, 10 triangle. So again, 3, 4, 5, 5, 12, 13, and 6, 8, 10. There's also 8, 15, 17, and 7, 24, 25 for the kind of person who was asking me about the sets earlier. So when we go back to this question, that means that we had an 8 and we had a 10, so there's a 6 right here that was missing. So this was a 6, 8, 10 triangle. And I'm going to come back to this slide in just a moment. Let me draw out the question so that we can figure out exactly how the pieces come together. So bear with me for just a moment. So this is 10, and this is 5, and this is 8. And we drew this line, so that's 8. If this is 8, then this is 6 because it's a 6, 8, 10 right triangle. We should just have that memorized. And then we can figure out what the area of the triangle is. The area of a triangle is going to be 1/2 base times height. Well, the base is 8 and the height is 6, so that's going to be 1/2 of 48, so that's going to be 24. And what I like to do is put the area right inside the shape, because that's just a nice way to remember that, oh, right, the area of that shape is 24. Now we don't have to think about it ever again. It's just locked into our diagram. And we can do the same thing for the area of this rectangle, which is just length times width, so it's going to be 40. So if we add the area of the triangle plus the rectangle, we're going to get 24 plus 40, so our answer is 64. This is the kind of work that you want to have on the page. You want to be working diagonally downwards, you want to be starting from formulas, and you want to be marking in your diagrams. This is the most important fundamental kind of technique for the math. So I just want to reiterate that again. I know I'm a broken record, but yeah, that's the job. So I hope you
Hey
guys
Travis, I had a kid come in for the ACT. This was last month, and he got a 24 ACT, which is pretty good. 24,
Yeah.
25, not too bad. He had come in and he had taken a practice test. He brought his booklet in. I looked in his booklet. Nothing written down. Nothing written down on the math section. Nothing written down on the reading section. Nothing. It was the whole test was done in his head.
No scratch paper?
No scratch paper. I had never seen that where there was nothing marked in his booklet. And I'm telling him the same thing you're telling, like this work, and showing him, or say, like, if you just write things down, because he was making some errors that he knew the answer, but he did everything in his head.
Right.
I literally had one session with him, an hour long, and we did some strategic stuff, which questions to do, and then the biggest thing was just show your work in your paper.
Right.
It just had an hour. He was taking the test in 2 days.
And how did he do it?
He went up 2 points on an ACT.
That's significant.
That is significant, guys. So what I'm telling you, just from basic stuff like the fundamentals Travis is talking about, just writing in your test booklet, crossing answers out, doing the math, showing the formulas, doing it the way he's showing you, makes a huge difference. You might think it takes long, but I'm telling you, as we said, make it second nature. You got to practice doing it. It's going to make a difference in your score. I'm telling you. It's not about I need to know a lot more. It's not about knowing more. It's about being smarter when you take the test. And that's just one example that just happened this last month.
Yeah, and I don't like to give arguments from authority because I think that's kind of lame. So what I'm going to say is that a lot of students that I've worked with, there have been students who go, yeah, that's great, and then they don't actually implement the technique, and they don't improve from where they started. The students that tend to do the best, and I've worked with a lot of students, we're talking hundreds of students, are the ones that just implement the technique, and they teach themselves something new, and they learn how to think on their feet. Learning how to think with the pen is learning how to process in multiple directions at once. Sorry, pencil. It means that you can stand in that space and think about all the creative solutions around you instead of trying to hold on to everything at once in your mind. You have to be able to do that because the test is going to do everything that it can to trick you. And the people who make this test have been making this test, either the ACT or the SAT, for, well, a couple of decades for the ACT and almost a century for the SAT. They have an awful lot of data, and they know how people make mistakes, and they use it against us. So we have to write things down. That's just how it is. That's how you beat the intelligence test. I guess it's more intelligent to write things down, if that makes you feel better. I personally think the intelligence that these tests measure is kind of like a video game skill, but it's something that you can learn how to do, and it just takes practice, but you do actually have to do it. So I'm agreeing with Anthony. Yeah.
Hey, another question had come in. I had answered it directly to them, but I think it's important because we were doing geometry questions. Somebody was wondering, he was asking, so there's more geometry on SAT, was what he was saying, which is not true. But how would you do that? Again, I don't know why he asked it if he was wondering, I'm not good at geometry, which test has fewer geometry questions? But how would you talk about the geometry difference between the two?
I actually think that I believe it's the case that the new SAT might have slightly more geometry, but it's not all that significant. People make a big deal about it.
I think the number of questions there are more geometry questions on the ACT, but the percentage.
Yes, percentage-wise, that's right.
Percentage-wise for the SAT, there's more geometry questions. There's probably upwards of 20 plus geometry questions on the ACT.
Yes.
But that's out of 60 versus,
right.
Close to 20 out of 58 or so. So I mean, the percent, I think it's close
Yeah, so
percentage-wise.
it's
There's more geometry questions on the ACT though in general, just because there's more questions.
right. And the point that I want to make is that it's not a very significant difference. I think it's more of a marketing ploy. Although I could be wrong. There are people who would argue me tooth and nail on that. So what I'm going to tell you is that just take one of each test. If you're not sure which one you're better at, take an hour and do all the math on an ACT, and then take, I think it's an hour and a half total, and do all the math on the SAT. It's worth your time to figure out which one you're better at. There's a lot more going on than merely geometry in both tests. There's how the questions are organized. There's how many word problems there are. The SAT actually used to have more words, but they've toned it down a little bit because they got in trouble for having too many words. The tests are always changing. You need to figure out what works for you. But the geometry content is going to be ultimately about the same between the two tests. That's what I think.
Yeah, the concepts are the same, everybody. It's just like you said, it's the way they're asked might be a little different. What do you like better?
Yeah, and what makes you feel better? The SAT is a little bit more academic. It's a little bit more conceptual. It takes a little bit longer to do each problem. It is also quite a bit more sneaky. The ACT is a little bit less sneaky. It's a little bit more plug in the answers and work in the diagram based. And it's also a lot faster. So you really have to feel both and see where you end up score-wise. There are some differences, but you know, if you find yourself within 5 percentiles of either, then just go with the one that makes you feel better overall. Some people are more SAT kind of people because they like the kind of slower, more tricky problem-solving feeling. Some people are more ACT because you can just go through it and feel the sequential, time-oriented nature of the test, and that's fine. Let me go back to where we were. Okay, so once again, if we add up the different areas that we had collected on our page, then we'll have a total area of 64 for this shape. So again, with geometry, mark the figures, write the formulas down. Sometimes drawing an extra line helps. And if you're curious, just about any manual out there will show you some of these tricks, and you can practice them. Make sure you grab one that has explanations in the back. And I encourage you to try working with your friends. If you can band together with a colleague or a classmate, you can go a long ways just by teaming up. A really important thing to remember is bite-sized pieces. So I already said this earlier, but if you are juggling more than 2 pieces of information in your head, you're probably going to get tricked. There are things that can be flipped around. This is especially true on the ACT science, and we'll see that in the next class. But it's also in the math. A negative can be negatived again, or it can be put inside a square. So it's a negative squared, so it becomes positive, or it can be a negative negatived. Those kinds of things can be forgotten when they're done in a mental space, but they're saved when you do it on the page. The really important thing to remember is that you're using the paper as a thinking space, and that's going to enable you to save points. So that's really the fundamental of math. I know that sounds really pedantic, and you're like, no, that's a waste of time, but we're here to tell you that it's not. It seems slower in the beginning, but like any skill, it's going to speed you up. If somebody walked up to me and said, hey, Travis, here's this, I'll use golf, even though I'm terrible at golf. Here's a golf club. And I say, great. And they're like, so we want you, if you work with this golf club, you'll be able to knock the ball a lot farther than you can throw it. And I'll be like, yeah, but it's going to take me a month. Yeah, fine. So Travis takes a month with a golf club, and then he can knock the ball maybe like 100 yards, whereas he can only throw it 30. That's kind of what these techniques are like. It will take time to practice them, but then you're going to be a lot faster as a result. Let's review really quickly the flood step. The F stands for formulas. Whenever you see a formula, you should write it down. Labels and units. Always label your units. Talk about length if they have it. Talk about the distance, the time, the name of the person, whatever it is that is the unit of the question. Always mark in the diagram or create your own diagram if you need to. And then you can simplify, you can check your target, and you can plug in. So here's one where we can draw our own diagram. Hopefully I got this right as well. I'm going to give you guys a moment to read it, and then I'll read it and show you guys how to do the setup. if, by the way, you read this question and it just makes you inwardly shudder, that's okay. That would be your personal order of difficulty talking, and it might be the question that you just save for later. There's nothing wrong with that. But you definitely want to read the question and try to set it up, because that's going to give you a good chance to at least eliminate an answer or two and maybe take a good guess. In fact, a guess is the wrong word. You can take a good estimate. That's really what we're trying to do. Okay, so on this one, I could not figure out how to draw a diagram with my computer, so I'm going to just do this the old-fashioned way. Let me reread the question so that we're all there. Felipe and Zayu are doing a hip-hop performance, because hip-hop performances are cool. And they each do a spin move that covers a circular area of 12.56 square feet. So there's going to be some sort of a circle, and they're each doing a circular spin move. And apparently it's 12.56 feet squared. Notice I wrote down the units, and I've labeled it. And that reminds me of a formula, because the area of the circle is going to be 12.56 feet squared, and we can set that equal to pi r squared, and we could solve for the radius. So if we divide 12.56 by pi, let me pull out our trusty calculator, and hopefully everybody has something like this. Divided by pi, we're going to get 3.99. So basically 4. So 4 is going to equal r squared, so 2 equals the radius of the circle. And that's going to be for both of these circles, apparently, for both Felipe and Zayu's circle. Apparently, these circles need to have 1 foot of space in between them. So there's going to be this 1 foot here. And then we want to figure out the minimum area of the rectangular stage that would have to fit their performance. Well, this is where you have to really look at the diagram and think. And this is where the test can be creative. If you try to do this in your mind, if you could do this in your mind, you probably don't need to be doing any SAT prep, at least in the math, because you're really, really good at doing conceptual stuff. You really have to do this on the page. I would say 99 people out of 100 are going to need to look at this for a moment and go, oh, yeah, I guess the rectangular stage would fit something like this if it was the minimum rectangular stage. And if you drew this on your paper, very well done. And then we can think, okay, and let's see, the diameter of this circle was 4, because the radius is 2. And the diameter of this circle is 4. Oh, so that means that the entire stage length is going to be 9, because there's the 4-foot diameter and the 4-foot diameter of Felipe and Zayu respectively, and then there's the 1 foot in between. And also the length of the stage is going to be the diameter of one of these circles. We don't need an extra foot in between because there's no space in between. We're just going to have the distance of one circle as the length because they're performing next to each other. So apparently the area of the minimum stage is going to be about 9 times 4. So the area of the stage is going to be 9 times 4. So it should be 36-ish. So if we flip back to our presentation on the slideshow, we draw it using the flood step. And again, I have the wrong answer circled. I apologize, but it should be 36. We've proven beyond a doubt that it's 36. So it's 36. We've clearly had technical difficulties with the answers, but these will be fixed on the released version. If there's time, you can also plug in on geometry. Actually, sorry, this is for the end of our lesson for today. So I'm gonna end with a quick discussion of plugging in on geometry. The first thing that I want to ask, and hopefully this was covered, I'm sure it was covered by Anthony, is how do we know if we want to plug in? The way that I like to say it is that we're going to have variables in the answer choices. If you look at the answer choices, there are going to be X's or Y's or R's, some sort of lowercase cursive letter that we can plug in for. So if you glance at the question, you should know that you can plug in within the first 3 seconds because it has variables in the answer choices. So question number 12 here, if we just glance at it and we look at the answer choices, there's X's in the answers. That means that we can plug in. That's just what it means. Another way that we know we can plug in is because it says in terms of in the question itself. I believe that was pointed out in the class on plugging in. So these are two different indicators that we can plug in on this question, which is good because this would be very difficult to do with algebra. If you're solving it with algebra, more power to you, but we're going to go through it as a plug-in. I'm going to give you guys about 20 seconds to work on it, and then we'll go through it together. Okay, so flipping back once again, we're going to do the flood step setup for this. So give me just a moment and we'll redraw it, and then we'll solve it. So we have a bow tie, essentially. And this is C, D, E, F, and G. This is X and that's Y. And this is 40. And they're saying also that EF equals EG. So if we're marking in our diagram, that means we need to make this mark, this right here, EF equals EG. Now that's really important because what that means is that this triangle, triangle FEG, is an isosceles triangle. In other words, because it has the two little eyes, it's going to have the two cheeks. That's how I was taught to remember this. It's kind of funny. Or if it has the two bottom angles the same, then it's going to have the related sides that are opposite the angles the same. But I think it kind of looks like a Pokemon. So that's one way you can remember it. So that means that if we go up to here, not only is this angle going to be y, but also this angle is going to be y. That's the aha moment to this question. You're not going to get that unless you're marking in the diagram. If we were plugging in, we would look at the answers and we would say, oh, well, the answers A, B, C, D, and E, they all have x's in them. Answer A, for example, has x minus 35, B has x minus 20, C has x over 2, D has x over 2 plus 20, and E has x over 2 plus 40. And what we're going to do is plug in for x, because x is the variable in the answers. So because x is the variable in the answers, we can pick whatever we want x to be. Now, we want to think about what we plug in here. It doesn't make a lot of sense to choose x equals 2 because we're plugging in for an angle. So when we plug in on geometry, we want to plug in something realistic. If we're looking at this question, this looks like, I don't know, maybe 50 or 60 degrees. I'm going to say that it's 60 degrees. It looks like a bit more than 45. A good angle to plug in general is actually 60. So if you want to plug in on an angle, just remember 60 is a great number. If x is 60 degrees, then we have two of the angles of our triangle. Well, we should know that the three angles of a triangle add up to 180. That means that this angle right here, the third angle, would have to be 80 because we made x equal to 60. That 80 would carry across, so this would be 80. And that means that 80 plus y equals 180 degrees, or that 2y equals 100 degrees, or that y equals 50 degrees. So when x is 60 and we work our way all the way through this diagram, we get out that y is 50, and that is our target. We can take this target relationship and we can compare it with the answers and see which answer gives us 50 when x is 60. Does 60 minus 35 make 50? I don't think so. It would need to be 60 minus 10. What about 60 minus 20? No, that's 40. That's no good. What about 60 over 2? No, that's 30. That's no good. What about 60 over 2 plus 20? Yeah, that's 30 plus 20. That's 50. So that's the answer. The answer is D. Again, this is being done slowly and might seem like it's a waste of time, but when it's done in real test prep mode, it's fast. It's the kind of thing where if we were watching a fairly good football player, and by football I mean soccer, the person would dance across the ball and it would be super quick and you'd be like, how did the person get so fast? And we'd say, well, the person obviously practiced and mastered the technique. And that's what we want to do here. So let me go back to our slide. The correct answer is D. If you let x equal, sorry, it's the other way around, 60, then y is going to be 50. I think it might also be if x is 50, then y equals 60, but it doesn't matter. Okay, I'm going to make a couple of parting suggestions, and then we'll open this up to questions. So one question that people tend to ask is, okay, I've done a practice test, and I have this many questions that I know I need to get my target score. So how much work do I need to do? Well, some students come in and they make a big shift, like the student that Anthony talked about. That student came in and clearly started writing down more on the page and processed better and went up 2 points on the ACT. And that's a significant jump. That's like 100 to 150 point improvement on the SAT. That is an okay or realistic improvement for a first timer. You will expect to see some improvement in the beginning. People do tend to jump just by doing 2 or 3 practice tests. After that, it's going to take 2 to 3 weeks of continuous prep where you're doing 5 to 10 hours of prep a week plus a practice test in order to get another 2 points. That's just how it is. It's a slow process. Sometimes students will work for a month or 2 to get a 5 or 6 point improvement on the ACT, or even a 3 or 4 point improvement. The point is that if you consistently work and you reflect and you discuss, then you will continue to get better. And that's just how it is. It's a learning process. Everybody goes up with the right kind of practice. What is the right kind of practice? There are 3 things that are really important for the right kind of practice. 1, you must be consistent. It's like a sport. If you practice a sport only 1 time a week, you're just not going to get that much better at it. You might get a little bit better at it, but you're not going to get a lot better at it. If you practice a sport like 4 times a week, or even 5 or 6 times a week, like every day, like brushing your teeth, you will get a lot better at it. That doesn't mean that you need to practice for 2 hours at a time. Sometimes as little as 40 minutes, but 5 times a week will get you the kind of improvement that you want. This is what I as a tutor have to work to get my students to do. I'm sure it's the same thing for Anthony and for Alan. If we can get people to do consistent practice and ask us questions, they're going to go up because they're practicing the techniques and they're getting better and they're learning as they go. What we do is try to make it a little bit faster, but it's something that can be done by working with people and by reflecting, by looking at the questions that you miss. And as the second point says, reflecting on why is it that I missed this? And not only reflecting on why you missed it, but trying to resolve the question. And not only resolving the question, but saving the thing that you discover in a notebook and reviewing it before you take a practice test. Let me repeat that because that's really important. A lot of students who do a lot better on these tests over time create a log of what they're missing. They have a math log, they have a grammar log, they have a science log if they're doing ACT, or they have a reading log. And they save the details that they did not expect in the question, or that surprised them, or that they learned from. And those are the things that they review over time to create improvement. If I were to try to get better with a golf club, I might do the same thing. I might pay somebody to videotape me with a golf club. I've seen people do this. I haven't done it. And tell me how to fix my swing, because I probably have a terrible golf swing. But if I looked at a video and I reflected on it and I talked about it and I shared what I was learning with other people, I would gradually get better. If I wanted to become a better football player, again, I mean the Latin kind of football player, I would have to sit in my backyard and practice dribbling and practice passing and talk to my coach and work with my teammates and practice every day or every other day consistently, and I would improve. The third thing that you need to do is you need to collaborate. People get stronger through teamwork, and that even applies on a test that you're going to take by yourself. People get better because they work in groups, not because they're doing everything by themselves in a room behind closed doors. People get better because they have friends or colleagues or even tutors, or they take classes, or they use a book. All of those things are different ways that you can use to help yourself get better at just about anything. When we go to school, we're learning together in a group. The teacher is having the group work together. When we do projects in business, when we get out into the quote-unquote adult world, it's all teamwork. Believe it or not, teamwork is going to help you on this test as well. So again, be consistent, be reflective, and be collaborative. And then beyond that, the flood step, and sky's the limit. So give it a go. If you have any questions, you're welcome to email me at this address, or again, you can email Anthony, your counselor who put this together. Hello, Anthony. And I look forward to your questions, and I also look forward to the questions that we're going to have right now.
Great. So why don't we open up to questions, everybody? I'm in night vision right now. You can see me. It's a little bit darker here. So bring the questions on. We had a question not too long ago about calculators. I'm just going to kind of, I've been answering these people just directly, but so you guys know, just to be sure, Go to act.org, collegeboard.org to just check which type of calculator you have and if it's approved or not. ACT tends to be a little bit more strict. Some of the questions that were coming in were about, hey, do I need to clear my calculator? Can I bring in, listen, if you're getting so worried about your calculator, then that tells me you're just not ready for this test. So the biggest thing is you don't necessarily need to use a calculator to do a lot of the problems. If you're going to be relying on your calculator, you're not ready for this test. So what I can say is, yeah, go ahead, Travis. You want
I
to
want to interject just a little bit. So there are a lot of people out there that are using the calculators as a sales trick. Anthony and I come from an older generation. In fact, Anthony, you might be surprised to hear that I just recently downloaded programs into my calculator. So apparently a lot of people are doing this. It is kind of a big deal. But I downloaded all the programs. I went to the website. It's like calc.ci or something like that. You can find it on YouTube if you want to download programs. And it takes about half an hour. And I tried these programs out, and I have to say they did not save me very much time. The only one that maybe sort of saved me time was the distance program. I think that they're kind of a selling trick for a lot of people trying to say, hey, the calculator is going to make you smarter. It will make you feel safer, and it is something that you can use, and it will make you better at the math. However, you do not need it. You can get a lot done, I would say 95% of the questions done, by doing them on the paper and using the calculator as a backup for those 5% of questions that you need a little bit of computational skill to solve, because it's got like rad 3 over 2 squared divided by 5/4 or something like that that you just cannot do on the page or in your mind. Sorry, I was going to switch back over.
No, that's perfect. That's good. And so, and every proctor is going to be different, whether they check your calculator or not. So again, go online, just double check. But again, sometimes you can bring in an illegal calculator and you might be able to use it because nobody checked it. So every test site, everything is going to be different. But again, I wouldn't get hung up on calculators.
One other point, sorry.
Yeah.
The 84 is allowed on both tests. I think it's the 89 that's not, or the 92. If your calculator is a QWERTY keyboard, it's not allowed.
Yeah. No, the 89 is not, or the 92, at least on the ACT, I believe. So again, go look, go check it out, and but be prepared so you don't have to be reliant on a calculator. I really don't use a calculator in these tests. It just slows me down. So, and then there's a time to use it and not. On the SAT, there's a section of math you cannot use a calculator. There's no calculator. And then there's a section that you can use a calculator. Okay, so again, just a couple things on that. Where do we sign up for the ACT? For the real ACT, just go to act.org and you'll sign up there. So that's the question. Again, in your emails, I've been sending you through the program. Read them. They have it right there. I'm even giving you the link to sign up for the test. You should register for the test. College Board for the SAT, act.org for the ACT, but they're in the emails I'm sending you. They're in the syllabus, and we're in the welcome letter that I sent you guys, so make sure you sign up. Again, don't sign up for coming up if you're not ready and you're not getting a score you want. You got to take multiple practice tests. You got to know what you're scoring. If you don't and you're not ready, what's the point? You're just going to pay some money and sign up and get a score you're not happy with. All right. Other questions? Get them coming in. Anything on the math? Anything maybe even we covered beforehand? Because Travis and I were pretty well versed on all the stuff. So while you have us. Okay, here's another one coming in. What does D in flood stand for again?
The D in flood stands for diagram, and that stands for two different things. If they give you a diagram, then you should mark inside the diagram. And we practiced that with the one question that had the 6, 8, 10 triangle when the total area was 64. Or you might have a question where you have to draw your own diagram. For example, the Felipe and Zayu question where we had to draw the stage. Those are the two different variations of diagram that you can expect to see. If they give you a diagram, you must mark in it. And this will also apply in the science. If they don't, but they talk about a shape, you probably want to draw it.
Okay, another question coming in. How long each day should I spend on the ACT to increase my score by 3 points approximately?
Do you want to answer that?
Well, first of all, 3 points is quite a bit. Okay, so guys, understand it sounds like, oh, 3 points, not a big deal. That's quite a bit. I mean, you're talking about, again, I don't know where you're starting at. If you're in the high 20 range, 3 points is even harder to do because you're not missing many questions. If you're at a 18 or a 16, well, 3 points might be reasonable, but still, general speaking, you're probably talking 2 to 3 months. You're talking 5 to 10 hours a week. You're talking about 3 to 5 practice tests spaced out, taking them and analyzing how you're doing, what you're missing. So again, I would look at each section. I would say, what are my goals for each section of the ACT, whether it's science, because each one, if you go up, if you get 5 more questions in math or 6 more questions in math, that could be your 2 points there, but that's not the overall composite score. You got to look at the other sections as well. So 3 points is not going to be an easy task, but it's definitely achievable where you're at. You got to have a good plan in place. You have to be disciplined. I don't know if you're prepping on your own or what you're doing. That also makes a difference, because if you don't have any strategies and techniques yourself, you're going to need someone like Travis teaching you. If you're on your own, you've got to be disciplined enough to do it. So it's really it's a lot. 3 points is a big jump. It's not a small task. Yeah.
I do just want to add, so if you are just starting out on your test prep journey, 3 points is going to be a bit easier because you're going to learn a lot about the test itself and feel more comfortable, and that might be worth a point or two in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have some content on top of that. A lot of test prep firms will guarantee a 3 to 4 point ACT improvement, but that will be over a 6-week course where they do 4 practice tests or 5 practice tests, and they're forcing you to do 10 to 15 hours of work a week. So keep that in mind. Some students are going to get higher than that in 6 weeks. They might get 4 points. They might even get 5, although that's more like the lower end, like maybe 5 or 10% of the students get that many, but they can guarantee a 3-point improvement. The bottom line is that if you work and if you ask questions and if you reflect and if you're collaborative, you will improve.
Yeah, and I think Travis made a point. It really depends on where you are on this spectrum. We talked about pacing a couple times in math. Travis brought it again tonight. I've talked about it early on. That in itself can get you 2 to 3 points. It really depends on what you were doing before. A lot of people fight that, as he talked about. It's like sometimes you just don't believe us that you're going to tell us, like, do fewer questions. Spend time, don't do the hard ones, especially if you're a middle of the road scorer. By doing only, say, 45 ACT questions instead of 60, being more accurate and just guessing on the last 15 could get you to 2 or 3 just in math alone by just your pacing. So again, depends on where you're at in the spectrum of it, but understand some of the things, especially that we taught you through the program, can have a big impact on your score. But as Travis said, it's not done overnight. You have to learn how to pace. It doesn't just like tomorrow I know what to do. You've got to practice it and see how it works for you and what you're doing with it. So again, it's all over the spectrum, but again, you can get a big jump really quickly, especially if you had no tools to start with. Okay. All right, another questions. Are there a lot of questions on graphing complex math problems? Any tips or tricks there?
I guess I'll go for that one.
Yeah, okay.
The SAT is going to have a few more complex graphing type questions. The newer well, for us, it's the new SAT. For you guys, it's the SAT. The calculator section does have a few more challenging questions about functions. So you may have to graph a function. That's possible. If they give you a more complex formula kind of thing, usually by writing out the formula, you can see where to plug in whatever variable values and just solve it that way. There are a few questions where you might have to graph a cosine, or you might have to graph some quadratic and then figure out where the min is. So you should be comfortable graphing a basic graph in your calculator. If you're not sure how to do that, it's really easy. You just go to y equals. Say we want to graph, here I've got some quadratic, so I could graph it. That's really weird. Oh, it's not selected. Anyways, you go to y equals and you can put in something like x squared, and then you can graph it. And my calculator, for some reason, has a unit circle in it. But you can see that it made the graph right there. And I would be able to find the minimum if I needed to. So if you're not sure how to use your calculator, take a look at some of the online tutorials. Just type in YouTube, how do I use my graphing calculator? You will find all sorts of great 5 to 10 minute videos that will tell you everything you need to know. You just got to take the time to do it.
All right, another question. How would you go about tackling those scientific-like math questions where they give you a formula and list what each variable represents? So guys, you can, a couple ways. We talked about plugging in already. Sometimes it's just they're giving you, and it looks horrendous, and all you have to do is maybe potentially plug in for a variable. So if there's an X or a P or a T or something, sometimes it's just a matter of picking your own number and plugging it in. We talked about that technique. Another technique sometimes is back solving, is using the answer choices and plugging those answers in, and sometimes you'll find that out. Travis talked about just labeling things or earlier on, take it in bite-sized pieces. Don't just get overwhelmed by all the steps along the way. So those are some things to make it more manageable. But if you had an actual question we can look at, it makes it a lot easier to explain what we would probably do or give you. All right, other questions, guys. These are really good questions and really pertaining to talking about how to improve your scores.
Yeah, I'd say you can even type them in. Also, since I don't know if I see anything fresh question-wise, I just want to add that if you're working on the ACT or SAT, certain sections are going to improve more quickly. So your grammar will tend to improve a little bit more quickly if you work on it. That's the kind of thing where there are only about 15 to 20 grammar rules. So if you memorize those and you practice them, you should get faster. Math does take a little bit more time. Once you've mastered setting up and getting the basic diagramming and those kinds of things, that should be worth a few points. But then you have got a wide array, really a veritable umbrella of things that you're going to have to learn, as far up as trig, like the SOHCAHTOA. You even have to know the basic sine and cosine relationships on the unit circle. You also have to know your algebra 2, your quadratics. You have to know word problems. You have to know ratios. You have to know some arithmetic. You have to know averages. And there are a few other things that I'm not mentioning. There's this really wide scope. Mm-hmm. So you have to practice all those different things. Math improvement is a little bit more slow, but once you know the technique, it'll stay with you forever. And so it's a more solid kind of improvement. And then the reading and or science, which are actually on both tests, although the science on the SAT is more interspersed throughout the test, whereas the science on the ACT is just in one section alone. Those are also skill sets that tend to be a little bit faster than math, but a little bit slower than grammar to improve. Bottom line for all of them, though, same thing I've been saying. Consistency, reflective, meaning you actually try to figure out why you missed it and how you could fix it, and collaborative.
Great. Yeah. Other questions? We also, as far as what Travis just mentioned too, the things that we've taught you, except that's really plugging in and back solving, those things apply to all different types of math questions. So they're more present on the test than a particular type of question, like a trigonometry. You might only see 4 ACT questions on it, let's say. But you can do plugging in and back solving, as we talked, in all different parts of the test. So some of these extra topics, ratios or proportions or trigonometry and stuff, when you do practice tests and you're doing drills, you need to find out, am I good at that stuff? Is it part of my personal order of difficulty? I'm good at those, I should do those questions, or I'm not so good and I need to learn more about that type of question. Then you got to go back, hit the books, and learn a little bit more and find a new method to do those questions. So again, it's on you guys, but it's definitely doable. And it is a big scope of material, but some only have 1 question on it or 2 questions, so they're not as frequent as some of the things we've been showing you. Doing your work and using the paper and the flood step and the plugging in and all that stuff, you can use that all over the place, and that's the most essential stuff, and that's why we taught that to you guys in this short time. All right, here we go, another question. Not a question, a comment. Thank you both for your time. Love it. We can always take those anytime.
Thank you. I'd also like to add that when you're doing prep, a log is really helpful. It's just so important. A lot of students expect to improve just because they've done the work. Those students are going to plateau because they're not reflecting on what they're doing and they're not actually actively forcing themselves to learn why they're missing. Yeah, as a tutor, I spend a lot of time saying the same thing over and over to people, that if they really wanted to, they could have learned the second time around. But because they chose not to memorize their notes, we have to learn it 6 or 7 times. They end up getting it anyways, but it's really inefficient. And that's not all of my students, but that is quite a few of them. The best students are the ones that take notes and review those notes.
So a hint, go back to our slides and our notes from or our videos and watch them again and do it in 2 takes, and you guys will be set on, at least on the way. So, all right, if there's no more questions, then we'll wrap it up. Again, thanks everybody for your time. Travis, much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you guys.
And then we'll see Travis Wednesday if you guys are gonna hang out for the ACT Science. If you don't know which test you're going to take, I would still either attend or watch the video if you figure out you're going to do ACT later. So, so check that out. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to stop the recording. I'll stay on for a little bit longer.